This is a capsule, and we will now talk about PT's desperation. My friend, people are terrified because they can't prevent Eduardo Bolsonaro from taking over the Chamber's Foreign Relations Committee, right? You know, this week is happening the definition of the committees in both the House and the Senate and the negotiations that took place by the time of the election, the presidents of the House and the Senate. Eduardo Bolsonaro will be the boss, right? He will be the leader of the Foreign Relations Commission. And then Opt is terrified. Why? Because Eduardo Bolsonaro has taken several actions there in the United States with the Trump government and such, leaving the STF people upset here, right? And then, you know what the threat was? That OPT said no, because if Eduardo Bolsonaro is the president of the Foreign Affairs Committee, we will revoke his passport. Look, what's the story? How is OPT going to hunt down a parliamentarian's passport, right? They are assuming that there is already the PT-STF coalition, right? That is, we are being governed by a judicial junta. They're between OPT-STF, who already makes decisions based on this, right? We'll see what happens in this story here, but it clearly shows the desperation of these people. This news was suggested by Peter Arrested Tomorrow, Tolete Molino, and several other people. Thank you there to the people who suggested news there on our website at visalibertaria.com, and thank you to you who are watching our video. If you like our content, please leave your like and subscribe to the channel here, right? First of all, let me make it clear to you that I think Eduardo Bolsonaro will take over the leadership of the Foreign Relations Commission and will not have his passport. Is it confiscated by the STF? Yeah. I don't think that's going to happen. In other words, I think OPT is saying all these things out of desperation because OPT knows that it is losing in the chamber, it is losing in the Senate, it is losing all the political importance it once had in Brazil. And what's left for them is to scream, to cry, to complain. And you have. And this complaint of theirs reflects much more of their despair, right? As I told you, this idea of retaining Eduardo Bolsonaro's passport was very much an attempt to set a trap if Eduardo Bolsonaro tried to escape. So you see, look, there's something wrong. He tried to escape, right? But since that didn't happen, then I don't see any problem. They won't be able to go through with it, right? At last. Look at the absurdity here. Eduardo Bolsonaro's passport becomes an object of bargaining in negotiations by the commissions, right? You may not think so, but wait a minute. But OPT can't decide the commissions. And that's what I'm telling you, right? People complain no, because Bolsonaro is supporting Hugo Mota. Bolsonaro is supporting Alcolumbre. And my friend really has to negotiate, otherwise you will be left out of these commissions. That's what Bolsonaro did, right? He negotiated this type of thing. Eduardo Bolsonaro is negotiating to have the Foreign Relations Committee in the chamber, right? Opt even said that he would give up the Education Committee, give up, I don't know what there to take commissions, foreign relations and stuff and such. But it is the prerogative of people who accepts this exchange or not. And apparently OPL didn't accept it. OPL wants the Foreign Relations Commission and wants to put Eduardo Bolsonaro there exactly because it hurts the PTE, the STF, right? So that is, as they are seeing it, it's a useless fight, right? I already told you this, right? These agreements you have, which are made by election, they are not written agreements, so we are not a contract that you go there and sign. That doesn't exist. It's in the word, it's in trust, but it's a valid contract, okay? Because what happens? The politician, the moment he begins to disrespect contracts, he agrees one thing and then does not fulfill what he agreed, my friend. He has no future in politics. No one else will make an agreement with him. He ends up dying politically. That's what I say to you. It's very important to respect contracts that you sign, because if you get dwarf respect contract now, you're killing any future contract you want to sign. How is anyone going to trust the future contract if you haven't respected the past contract, right? So in politics, there's a lot of that. There's nothing in writing. There's nothing, it's not everything, it's everything in the word, but it's fulfilled. And that's what must have happened, right? OPL was promised to him the Foreign Affairs Committee. In this monumental agreement shaped during Hugo Mota and Davi Alcolumbre's election, OPL now opts to place Eduardo Bolsonaro himself there. OPT, in his emotional state, firmly stated that apart from Eduardo Bolsonaro, no one else is viable. Regardless of OPT's emotional response, Hugo Mota remains unwavering. Why? Changing his decision is politically suicidal. Despite being the current chamber president, a role limited to 2 years, he won't secure another agreement thereafter. Like a traitor who doesn't respect agreements, then forget it, you will respect the agreement. Eduardo Bolsonaro will take over the Foreign Relations Committee. Then the PT's desperation exposed this business here. Oh, we even made this move to ask for the seizure of Eduardo's passport to send it to the Chamber's Foreign Relations Committee. We'll accept any name except his only name without a passport. said the PT leader. That is, he made a threat, and it was not only them who did it. No, here, in Globo 2, here, people are talking here, oh no, that ACCJ can stay with Union Brazil, because I don't know what they're here. Andrea Sadi is talking here. Oh, here is AOPT, only accepts Eduardo if he goes without a passport there, which is absurd, has no logic. Look, if you have a case against Eduardo Bolsonaro, OSTF, you can learn his passport now. If you have an affair, you can. If you don't have the case, you can't. No, you can't do that. So he seizes the passport if he wins the commission of his of foreign relations. It doesn't make sense. It doesn't make sense, right? Let's hear it here. Oh.
The PL's absolute priority today is to place Deputy Eduardo Bolsonaro as chairman of the Foreign Relations Committee. I told this story there on the blog on G1. OPL, as we are telling you, is the largest bench, is entitled to 6 commissions and the first 2 orders. What does that mean? You can choose whether you ask ACCJ first, the Health Committee, the Foreign Affairs Committee. In the calculation I had until Friday, the first 2 requests would be the Foreign Relations Committee. EACJ Felipe is bringing this new background that there may be an agreement of negotiation and Union Brazil end up with ACCJ. Remembering that ACJ is the most important committee in the House. But in times of Donald Trump, in times of opposition seeking international support to do politics in Brazil, the Foreign Relations Commission gains another weight, another dimension.
Their apprehension hinges precisely on this. Eduardo Bolsonaro will project substantial prominence in this foreign relations role through his maneuver. All politics, right? And that's the problem for these PT people here in Brazil. Will they be left without this possibility, threatening to take Eduardo Bolsonaro's passport? In that case, it is. They are admitting then that so what is happening is a PT-STF coalition, that's it. Justice is openly helping Lula. I don't believe the court will do this because there is no reason to detain Eduardo Bolsonaro's passport. Numerous PT deputies from the left traveled abroad during the Bolsonaro government to criticize it. Why could they do so and not lose their passport? It wasn't considered a betrayal then. No, it's not treason. You have the right to expose your case in other countries, to explain what is happening in Brazil, which is really absurd. The persecution of Bolsonaro is clear and obvious. There was no coup, no attempted coup. Here in Brazil, it's very clear, even from the messages from people complaining, that Bolsonaro doesn't want a coup. Bolsonaro won't do anything. How can I say Bolsonaro wants a coup? There are messages from people complaining that Bolsonaro didn't want a coup. Bolsonaro was the correct guy in this story. He saw that launching a coup in Brazil, an attempted coup, would throw Brazil into a recession, worsen the economy, and hurt everyone here without gaining any advantage. In other words, it's much better for him to lose, but Brazil to win than the other way around, right? He made the right decision, and however, as I have already explained to you, OSTF needs a coup from Bolsonaro, because otherwise, how does it justify all this arbitrariness it has done against Bolsonaro over the last few years? How do you justify this if there was no coup, if there was no problem, right? Anyway, now they are going after Eduardo Bolsonaro. It's another one of their bluffs here, especially because they know that even if we assume that Eduardo Bolsonaro is prohibited from going abroad, nothing will change. He will continue to articulate from here in Brazil. There are other people in the United States. Paulo Figueiredo is very active there. There are very active people, very close to the Trump administration, who will end up doing this type of thing too, and will end up showing what is happening here in Brazil. They're out there, right? I fear that the way things are going in the Trump administration, Trump won't be able to do much about it because he's sinking. His popularity is completely plummeting on this issue of the war with Ukraine, with Russia being on the wrong side of this story. I fear that Trump will end up not being able to help Brazil much, but in any case, it is evidently valid for Brazil to seek help from Trump. Trump has this ability to help Eduardo Bolsonaro here in Brazil, help Bolsonaro here in Brazil too, right? And helping freedom of expression, which is a very important thing for us here, has become an absurd exchange. Look, no. If not, will we take Eduardo Bolsonaro's passport? Look what a ridiculous threat. Country thing, third world echo, right? That's absurd. And these people here who call themselves Democrats, man, these people who say we are not in favor of democracy, but Eduardo Bolsonaro on the commission can't. He has to take his passport. Thank you for watching the video to the end. In addition to liking, sharing, and subscribing to the channel, consider becoming a sponsor with values starting at $1.99 BRL. Click the Become a Member button below to learn about the conditions and advantages of sponsoring the channel. For more information about our project, visit our website's